Are you a manager who is eager to change the trajectory of your career? I have spent the last 23 years as a Fortune 50 leader learning from other industry leaders how to break free from limiting beliefs and habits. On the Might in Motion podcast, we focus on the 4 M's: motivation, momentum, mindfulness, and might. We bring you leaders from Fortune companies, doctors, and entrepreneurs. Their stories of living their own might in motion will inspire you to create your own action plan and achieve your goals. Welcome to Might in Motion. Today's episode of Might in Motion is brought to you by Pantheon FM, Fortunes Magnified. Pantheon FM is changing the world through entrepreneurship. In this community, you will find everything you need to create, amplify, and monetize your world-changing business. Join us at pantheon.community/register/LAUA. Taryn Perry is a mom of 4 running her nutrition practice that focuses on macros and how they harmonize with women's hormones. Additionally, she's a fitness trainer at her local F45 and has a small digital marketing business working with women to expand their professional brand. I am so excited to welcome Taryn to Might in Motion.
Thank you. This is so fun. I appreciate you having me.
I'm really stoked because you are one of the podcasts that's on rotation on my headphones when I work out.
Oh,
and
good.
I love your podcast. I love the guests that you bring in. I always walk away with little tidbits, and which is fantastic. So thank you for the great content that you provide in your podcast. And give a shout out. I want to make sure the name is correct because it's an awesome name.
Oh, thanks. It's called Taryn Swears. And it has a number of meanings because it's mostly about the things that I swear with in regards to lifestyle choices, nutrition primarily, macros as part of the nutrition, talking about hormones, and of course, just business and life in general. So yeah, that's what it's about.
And you swear a little bit, and I can appreciate that.
I do. You know, it used to say Taryn swears a lot, and I took that a lot part out, and I was like, I'm going to kind of tone it down a little bit. However, I love a good F-bomb when it's really necessary, so that does come out.
Yeah, I think there's always kind of a running bet on when I will drop an F-bomb in any given day among my team, and my husband actually got me a paperweight that is literally a bomb with the letter F on it. And I've had numerous, for Lent, I'm going to give up cursing. And I've done that many, many years. I'm not great at it, but I'm better. I'm way better. So it's a journey like everything else.
Sure
so
is.
Speaking of journey, can you tell us how you have kind of your journey to now focusing on nutrition and hormones, and how did you get to where you are now?
It really was an evolution of my own journey. It started back in 2008. So before that, I was actually in commercial real estate. I worked at the time in downtown Seattle, Washington, as a landlord rep. So I was a broker. And I kind of worked my way up, had a partner, and we were just crushing the game. It was awesome. Had a baby, went back to work, had another baby, and it was just kind of the change of season professionally, and it just made sense for me to come home. So I stayed home, and I'm not a good stay-at-home mom. Like, when I mean that, I mean, like, I'm not the type that wants to get on the floor and play puzzles and like be all creative. I crave having an outlet. And so as soon as I became a stay-at-home mom, I'm like, what the F do I do now? Like, this is weird. Like, I am always going. And yes, they kept me busy. My son was brand new, right? He was like, by the time I'd kind of come to terms with the fact, like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm officially a stay-at-home mom. He was about 3 months because I still kind of had in my head that maybe I'll go back. And so from there, it was, okay, 3 months in, I have this baby. I have 2. I have a toddler. I'm trying to potty train. I'm nursing, and my body feels like shit. I just feel heavy. I've always been active. My dad took me to the gym when I was 14, 15 years old, and I loved it. Like I loved learning. I had no ambition of getting into fitness nutrition, none at that age. I just really liked being in the gym and I liked learning. I liked kind of being that different individual in the gym when at that age, like no girls and generally women were lifting weights.
Right.
Using a lot of the machines, but I learned how to use the weights, just dumbbells, basic stuff. So after I had my second and weight wasn't coming off like I thought it should, I dove into a program that a girlfriend introduced me to. It was called P90X.
Mm-hmm.
Heard of it? Like Tony Horton's like my homie. He literally like changed my whole thought process on fitness nutrition because no longer could I just work out and eat what I wanted. So it really taught me to understand how nutrition was just as important as the movement, the exercises, the time I was investing in the morning to get my ass handed to me by him. I had to double down on my nutrition. Once I understood that, even while breastfeeding, I started to see changes in my body. I wasn't the type that was like, ooh, 6 weeks later, I had like, my body back and even better by breastfeeding. Like
Right.
I had to work my ass off for it. Mind you,
Yeah.
I was 29 with my second. So I wasn't older. I was still, I felt like I still kind of had hormones working in my favor, but it was challenging because I was nursing, right? So hormones are all over the place when you're nursing, you're postpartum, you're still all these,
Yeah.
emotions because now I'm a stay-at-home mom. So as that evolved, we took a 6-year break, thought we were done having kids. And then, it just takes too many drinks at a baby shower to go, hey, you want to have another kid? And then he was like, I'm game. And I was like, shit. He said, yes. Um, and at that time I was 35. So I'm like, you know what? It's like total cobwebs, guarantee like nothing's going to fly.
Yeah.
Literally in like 2 months, we got pregnant again. So I'm here in my later 30s and have my third child still. And I was into CrossFit at the time. I was competing. And so I just never really left that edge. I really always had this competitive drive. And so had my third, and then we got pregnant because she needed a buddy. So we got a fourth. And so now I'm 38. And when you're 38 and you're pregnant, you
Yep.
are in the geriatric.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What an asinine terminology for somebody that is healthy. Like most women that age are generally healthy. And I was probably like physically healthy than I've ever been before, even in my 20s. So, but when I was after postpartum from 3, and then before I got pregnant with 4, like everything changed, like hormones, screeching halt. Anything that I had done in the past wasn't working. And so I was like, well, what's going on? Like, is my body just been like, well, you did this to yourself. You had another kid and this is your life. So work out, great. But whatever you eat, it's not going to really make a difference. So I was determined. I knew hormones were a very big part of the adjustment that I was going through with my body. So I went back to school after I swore I would never go back after, my 4-year college. I partied my way through, had a blast, never wanted to go back to school. But when you're interested in something, and I love learning, like, when you're an adult, it's so fascinating to learn things that are a part of your trade or just, that you're interested in. Because when I did my initial P90X, it really kind of catapulted me into this fitness and nutrition profession. I started to see people ask for what I was doing, ask for help. They needed support. I was like a hype girl for anybody. And so naturally people would come to me and say, hey, Taryn, how are you losing the baby weight? And when I couldn't give them an answer in my late 30s, like that's when I wanted to go and dive deeper. So I went back to school. I did an online school called Institute of Integrative Nutrition. It's kind of a mouthful. But it was the best holistic school that I could find. I had friends go through it. It just covered every facet of nutrition, from diets and the history of the diets. And I really wanted to spend time and energy in understanding hormones and the natural process of hormones versus synthetics or, like medically induced, as we were kind of talking about before. So that's kind of the long of it of how I got into it. And it's just, again, evolved as I enter a new season of life.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I had my 2 girls in my late 30s, and yeah, it was always, well, you're a woman of a certain age. And I'm like, really?
Mhm. Yeah.
What's wrong with I was able to get pregnant, so obviously I'm not that old. And it was frustrating
Yeah.
that you get classified. The exciting part was I got way more images of my child. Like I got to go into it for a million ultrasounds that nobody else got because, I was of an advanced maternal age.
Yes,
So
advanced maternal age. That was a
very
big more appropriate term than a geriatric.
Yes, I'm very wise. Like, but so, why, we were talking about this a little bit in the green room that I was at a friend's breakfast brunch on Saturday, and it was all women, and we got on the subject of women's hormones and why we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that really publicly with our girls as they make their transitions. And then we don't talk about it later in life when people may have issues with pregnancy, getting pregnant or staying pregnant. And then we don't do it again because we haven't learned our lesson after two failures of opportunities to share. We don't learn it again when we're going through those final changes of menopause and how to maybe move through that phase more gracefully. Um, why do you think women don't talk about it? And what can we do to change that narrative?
You know, and maybe in my world, it's becoming more of a conversation piece because so many women are, I guess, starting to realize that their hormones might be the reason why they're not getting the results that they
Mhm.
expect. I think maybe a light bulb's going on that, hey, I'm not where I was 10 years ago. My body
Mhm.
is not the same that I was 10 years ago. So it's naturally a conversation of, it's twofold really, because I think immediately women blame their hormones. Oh, I'm not losing weight because of my hormones, right?
Yes.
And so they rush to the doctor in hopes for the magic potion of hormone support that will in turn, help them drop 20 pounds. So instead of really learning, and so women that are still cycling, like still having a menstrual cycle, then it's really an opportunity to start to get back in tune with your body. I think women have lost the innate ability to
Mm.
trust themselves, right? Like women don't trust their bodies. Anything that your body is saying, they immediately want to go to a doctor and have that doctor diagnose them with something detrimental, right?
Yep.
Like they want to go and get like a detrimental answer so they'll have an answer versus going, you know what? This actually just might be a natural part of life. This might be just kind of this cycle of me being in my mid to late 30s, in my 40s. This might be perimenopause.
Mhm.
It's actually a really normal experience. Like, and there's a big scale of what it might be for some people. It might be, very lackluster, which is everybody's goal and dream, right? And
Yep.
perimenopause. And it might be a little bit more extreme. And that really just depends on the history of what they did when they were teenagers and
Mhm.
understanding what their influence was with hormones, which, to answer your question about the opportunity we have with our girls. I mean, I've got three. My two younger ones are 7 and 9, so we're not quite there yet, but I have a 17-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
So I took opportunity in knowing what I do and what I went through to have the conversation with her early on about her cycle and about
Yeah.
how understanding what her body's going through and that it's totally normal. And here's what you need to know about it. Here's what you need to know when you are in your follicular phase. Here's what you need to know when you are in your luteal phase, your ovulation phase, and when you're menstruating. And yeah, when you shouldn't have sex.
Mhm.
Because what I found over time as I started to work with clients that had really, extreme challenges in losing weight, like, they were eating healthy and they were working out, but nothing was moving. When I peel the onion back in my private clientele, a lot of that came to the surface is their history with birth control. And I don't, want to totally dissect all of that, but that plays a major role in
Yeah.
what we as mature women experience from, as we segue into perimenopause, into menopause, and everything else in between. And even during our child rearing years, challenges getting pregnant, PCOS, infertility. I mean, a whole host of things that are very, very standard with women of our age. And
Yeah.
that stems back to what we did hormonally, generally by way of birth control, whether taking
Mhm.
a pill, an IUD, shots, patches, got, you name it. And so really starting to unpack that. And so it's fascinating now when those conversations do open up and it's almost, again, those light bulbs go off and women are like, God, yeah, I was on birth control for 20 years, or I still have an IUD in. And no wonder I feel like crap,
Yeah.
And so unwinding that, obviously, in partnership with their physician or OBGYN, a holistic family or functional medical practitioner, but somebody that is qualified to support them while I, act as their team in bringing nutrition to support where they're at hormonally. So I love that it's now becoming a conversation of women of our age,
Yeah.
but now learning from what we know to support our teenage girls or even just any young girls in our life that we can impact.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I have daughters that are 7 and 9 as well, so that really resonates with me because I want to be thinking ahead, right? Because
Mhm.
we're not raising kids, we're raising adults, right? So being able to have that thought process ahead of time is so key, and there's so much more information out there. So how do you bring together your round table, right, of resources to help you? Um, and I love what you talked about how, women have lost their ability to trust themselves. And so I think about that not only just physically and how am I improving my physical well-being, but if I'm in a leadership role, right? If I've lost the ability to trust myself on my physical well-being, am I losing my ability to trust myself on my intuition as it relates to something I want to do in my business or I want to do with my team at work or, elsewhere in your family structure? Because women's intuition is really strong. I mean, it is,
Very.
and you can't explain it, right? But it's like you're usually probably 99% right when you can lean into that type of mindset of that intuition. Like that's my personal opinion. I don't know if you agree or not, but
100%. And you're right. It's hard to explain. It's hard to
yeah,
explain why you had that vision that something was off or like just anything about
yeah,
a child or another human being. We just have this gut. We just have
yep.
this intuition.
Yeah, and it goes a long way. I mean, I'm really big on creating teams that have a servant leader mindset because I know if I'm pouring into my team and I can be intuitive on that and see kind of hear and see between the lines, then I can help them level up in their career because I can help them level up personally as well, right? I think it's a big advantage that a lot of kind of female leaders don't always lean into because we're trying to emulate the male leaders in our life. And
Yeah.
no, we bring a totally different energy to the table that actually, if you work in partnership, can be a huge powerhouse win, right? So,
Yeah. Agreed.
so you mentioned you have like your private clientele that you work with. What's been one of the big wins you helped somebody with and work through?
One through a mutual friend that we have that I met through our coaching network.
Mhm.
When we started, she hired me to help her just get healthier. She was very active. She was working out, but really challenged with weight loss. And so, when I do a client interview, and really that is to make sure that we are a good match to work together. Our personalities, I can, really truly be myself, but also the authority not the authority, but like in a mutual sense. And so I go through a health history. I always want to know what my client's history is, what they ate as children, when they were on birth control, if they still are, what their periods were like, all of that nitty gritty stuff. And it's funny because when they send it back to me, they're like, you know what? I've never been asked my history on my
Mhm.
period. And I'm like, really? Like your doctor doesn't ask you about your cycle and your periods and aside from going to your OBGYN when what do we do go now every 5 to 7 years, we don't have to go every 2 years like we used to.
Right.
And so no, but that question's not being prompted to be asked. So when we kind of broke that down a little bit and dissected it and talked about her reproductive history, and a lot of things came to surface. She had PCOS, didn't necessarily have infertility challenges, but endometriosis. And
Mhm.
a lot of that is stemmed from birth control. So we talked about birth control. She was still currently on it. And so I asked her because they have to be a willing participant, right? And I said, are you willing to work your way off birth control obviously working with your profession, with a professional. I am not qualified to take you off it, but you have to be willing to go to your family practitioner, your OBGYN, whoever is helping you with this, and tell them you want to get off it. She's like, yep, absolutely. I said, okay, it'll be a process. It'll probably take a year to really get yourself off it, start allowing your body to release the years that have been built up with being on birth control. So fast forward 6 months. And even within that, she started to feel a world of difference. Once she did officially get off birth control, she started to feel so much different. And it was a process. She had to be weaned. Her dosage had to be decreased. So it wasn't just like cold turkey, I decided not to take it anymore.
Right.
I don't recommend that. Again, you know, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer.
Yeah, not medical doctors here. Yes.
Medical doctors, you need to be in partnership with your practitioner on this. Like, I
Right.
can't emphasize that enough. But you also have to be an advocate, because your practitioner gets a financial kickback when they prescribe things to you. So you have to be a very strong advocate in recognizing that this is not a tool that's serving you any longer. So when we did address that, and she was adamant, and her practitioner was very receptive to it and very, very supportive. So that was huge.
Yeah.
And so as she started to wean herself off, and we really focused on her nutrition, she was working out. So naturally, we had to be very intentional about her macro based nutrition strategy. So what I mean by that is when you're lifting weights and you're physically active, like, your body requires a certain amount of calories to meet that energy need, right? You need a certain amount of calories just to sit here, right? Just for us to sit here and talk. That doesn't have anything, and then you add in a workout, you add in a busy lifestyle, then your body requires more calories. So we had to manage what calories she was consuming by ways of protein, fats, and carbohydrates. And we had to be really intentional and finesse those proteins and fats, particularly because we needed to be sensitive to her transition through this hormone adjustment. So macronutrition with hormones became something that I really started to pair together when I worked with clients, because she noticed a huge impact physically in a positive way. She started to see her body fat decrease. She started to feel stronger. She started to feel less symptomatic when it came to her cycle. She started to have a natural cycle again, and a regular one over time. And just like the clarity, the fog lifted, the pain, the symptoms, like, so many things shifted once she was able to wean herself off and get off completely. But not only that, just focus on a really holistic based, macro based nutrition strategy to complement her workout programming.
Right. That's awesome. I mean,
It was cool.
and I think everyone should be an advocate for their own mental care, their physical care, etc., because nobody else is going to do it. It falls on you to really be able to push and advocate for yourself and what you need, right?
Wholeheartedly.
So, I mentioned in your intro that you're a mom of 4. You
Mhm.
have this business. You have all the things. What are some tips that you may have for people who are listening that are in their professional career, but they're also raising kids, maybe to find some, I don't like the word balance, but maybe integrate better, or things that people can do to make sure they're setting themselves up for success?
I'm really kind of a straight shooter when it comes to this, because when you're a professional and you are leading a team, you are in some sort of executive role, you need to walk into the room with confidence. And when you're not confident in your own body, people can tell. Your whole demeanor changes, the energy in your face, the way you carry yourself, how you dress yourself. So I think that there is an absolute non-negotiable that when you are in a professional environment, even if you're a business owner, taking care of your health has to be your number one priority, right? So that's one, in your profession, right? And 2, which maybe should even be your first influence, is when you're a mom and you have these little humans that are basically obsessed with you and everything that you do, they're watching. Why
Yes.
would you not treat yourself the way that you want them to learn, so you don't have to have them go through all of this heartache and, like, just challenges to unwind all of this nutritional torment that we did. Like, our generation, we, like, it was always diets. And half the women that I work with, we're unwinding 20, 25 years of dieting
Yes.
because we've chased the next thing. Like, right? It was Atkins, and then it was
Oh yeah.
non-fat, low fat, and then it was calorie counting, and then it don't calorie count.
No carbs and no this and no that and
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
So, and so my little girls, they watch everything I do. They want to do everything. We were just away for the weekend, and
Mhm.
they asked, like, we went and toured. We were just walking around this little village. We went up to this little resort town, not too far from where we're at here in Eagle, Idaho, and there was this beautiful fitness center. And me, like my face lit up, and I was like, "Oh, sweet, this is amazing." But I didn't say anything, and they were like, "Oh my God, Mom, can we come in here and work out?" I was like, "Yes."
Yes.
I was like,
Yes, we
okay,
can.
well, I'm doing something right. Naturally, it's my profession. However, when I, put back my corporate hat when I was working in corporate America, I was still working out. I
Yes.
was in the good old boys club. Like being in commercial real estate, it's dominated by men and like old school men, right? And
Yep.
so, yes, a lot of them were very respectful to women, but some of them weren't. Like they were just as dirty and hungry to go get business as we were. And they were just like, sometimes they were schemy. And
Yeah.
so I had to walk into a room with my partner, who was a female, and we had to walk in like we owned the joint. It was
Yep.
how we carried ourselves. It was also how we felt about ourselves. So if we were lagging, we were overweight, we were unhealthy. That came out and everything how we presented ourselves. So when you're in that role, I think your health has to be a priority, and all the excuses need to be obliterated because I get it. We're all busy. When you've got children and you're running a business or you're in an executive
Yep.
position of some sort and the demands are really, really high. And then, well, I've got to get home and I got to get my kids from A to B to C and dinner and da, 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 da. And I'm so tired at the end of the night. Like I don't have time to work out. And I'm just going through the drive through. It's easier. Like, okay, it might be easier, but guess what's not easier is the defeat in your health, the decline
Yep.
in your health as you get older, and also what you're teaching your kids at such a young age that you're not making time for these things because you've spread yourself so thin, right?
Right.
Like we choose to spread ourselves so thin. Everyone thinks it's just an expectation and it's a requirement in our generation and our time. Like it's not. We're choosing to take on so much. Like we always have an option to say no, to negotiate, to, not trade our time for money, and I get
Yeah.
that there's interest in making more money and sometimes it's necessary with having children, but our health can't be put behind that in the back seat. So, you know, like I said, regardless of your profession, even if you're a stay-at-home mom and you run a side business, you just have a little side hustle, prioritizing
Mhm.
your health for the sake of your children and allowing them to see this is a non-negotiable. Like my older kids and now even my younger kids, they know that being fit and healthy is non-negotiable. It is not to fit into a size 0 jeans, and especially with my teen, I've had to be I'm very upfront, but I don't sugarcoat it and like, like, oh, don't eat this and don't eat that. Like, go and eat it. But you also know like that you might feel like shit when you do. And your
Right.
periods suck if you over caffeinate and over sugar yourself. So we talk about the right sorts of foods that should be consumed and that, hey, you know what? As you're getting older and your body is evolving and you're maturing, like you have to take care of it. And
Yeah.
being physically active is a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Not I'm not forcing anyone to go run and do this. And it's very in an empowering and because you want to be healthy. Like we don't talk about weight, we don't talk about size, none of that. But because it's a non-negotiable health practice and tool. So when you are 50, 60 years old, like you still can do the things that you're doing now. Because if
Right.
you don't now, you're not going to be able to later.
Right. Oh, that's awesome. This has been like so insightful for me. And I know that there are people who are listening. They're like, man, I really like what Taryn has to say. I like that she swears. I gotta tune in, right? Or hey, I want some of that one-on-one coaching. I want to have a conversation with you directly. Or yeah, I know you have the free macro guide that's
Yeah.
out there, and you can put in all your information, and it pops out suggestions. What are some of the best ways for people to get a hold of you if they're looking for more information or how to do some of this coaching?
I'm on Instagram a lot. So either, go and get a taste for my personality if you haven't already. And what I talk about on the regular on my Instagram. Otherwise, go to my website. You can connect with me through there. I get a lot of great DMs, and I'm always the one that responds to all my DMs. I'm not, fancy enough to have a bot or anyone else to do it. I like to be in control of the conversation. So either through Instagram or through my website. My email is really easy. It's hello@tarynperry.com. So that's always a great way to connect. I love this stuff. I could talk about it all day long. But like you said, Marianne, I've got a free macro guide on my website that you can download. It's got an interactive macro calculator, which you should learn how to set your own macros.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to rely on anybody else to do it, but sometimes you need a little hand holding. And especially if you have a unique scenario or just you got a lot on your plate. And so that's why I tend to work primarily with corporate executive, high profile business owners, just because they just sometimes need that one-on-one. Let's get, to the nitty gritty. And that's really right in my wheelhouse.
I love this. I wrote down, some things that really resonated with me. Nutrition is just as important as kind of executing your day-to-day work life, right? Like you have to integrate proper nutrition. It's important that you help others. And that's something that you do every single day where you're actually sharing the information that you have to help others and help them grow, which I think is phenomenal. And that many women have lost that ability to trust themselves. And so when you start trusting yourselves with your nutrition and your physical well-being, it will start bleeding over into other parts of your life in a really positive way. That you have to be willing to take advice and be an advocate for yourself. So you've got to make sure you're putting yourself first. It's okay. Selfishness is a superpower and we should all leverage it. And then, when you talked about walking in the room, you've got to walk in the room with confidence. And so when you're in that space where you've got to do a big presentation or you're doing a big sale or, you just want to walk in the room to your toddlers and you want to walk in with authority, right? You've got to be able to come in with your best self. So you've got to put your health, your wellness first and to treat yourself the way you would want others to treat you as well. So we've got to have that same kind of self-love and thoughtfulness. So Taryn, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on Might in Motion today.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Mariana. That was great. I loved it. I mean, so amazing to talk to other women that are successful or just want to help other women be successful in all areas of their life. So I appreciate what you do.
Thank you for tuning into Might in Motion. If you learned something about motivation, momentum, mindfulness, or might, please like, comment, and share. Thank you.